I wasn't meditating at the time, so I just worked out. I came back, I was stretching, and all of a sudden I felt what would be labeled as a panic attack if you replace panic with love. So I had an onslaught of love overcome me, and it was very strange. I still look back, I get goosebumps thinking about it, and there's been several of these. I call them Bliss attacks since then. But this one, obviously, being the first one, was the most incredible because I was like, "What is going on?" And it's this extreme emotion. So it was like I was emotionally taken to the other side. So right, I call it my near life experience because it wasn't a near death experience. Yeah, it was not. I was not dead. I wasn't even close to dead. I was just stretching. So this is my near life experience. It's like I was like emotionally taken from my bed to the other side. I did not see things. I was not out of body. And, these things that you hear about that are amazing still haven't happened to me yet. I'm waiting for my out of body experience. Still hasn't happened. So this was not out of body. This was just emotionally I was taken, but at the same time I'm emotionally taken on the other side. I'm getting downloads. I'm getting things like these truths that I know are true because of how I'm feeling in that moment. So I know whatever is talking to me is truth because of how I'm feeling, and that's how I know it's truth.
Hello, my dear friends. I'm Donald Lee, and this is Expressing and Revealing Your Truth with Donald Lee. It's a podcast in which I help you understand the truth about who you really are and how you can express and reveal that truth in the world. To do that, I interview people who have had transformational spiritual experiences, the type of experiences that many of us wish we had but never do. Yet by learning from my guests' experiences and the wisdom they have gained from those experiences, all of us can glimpse a bigger vision of who we really are and how we can live our lives more fully, more peacefully, more lovingly. Be sure to download my free mini ebook containing 5 of the 50 parables from my popular book, The Band Director's Lessons About Life. These little parables are short, easy to read, inspiring, and also help you to understand more about who you really are. There is a link in the show notes below to get your free ebook. In this episode, I interview Justin Shaw. Justin is a former stand-up comedian and calls himself a mystical comedian. He struggled with substance abuse and was only able to finally kick it when he accepted that this required spiritual healing, not just physical healing. Then he had the first of many transformational spiritual experiences that he calls bliss attacks, like a panic attack, except with love. During this experience, he received information, what we often call downloads, directly from God or Source. This really jump-started his journey of spiritual discovery. He recently published a book in which he shares his prescription for spiritual growth based on these direct downloads from Source. The title is Sorcery 101, 13 Rungs to a Higher Elevation of Consciousness. I'm sure you'll find many pearls of wisdom and inspiration in this great conversation with Justin Shaw. Hello, my dear friends. We're here today with Justin Shaw. Now, he's in warm Arizona and I'm in cold Alberta, but at least the cold is done. Last week's snowstorm is over. The snow has melted. And I think spring is finally here. The grass has turned green and the leaves are starting to come out. All that stuff happened several months ago in Arizona, but welcome, Justin. How are you today?
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, we don't really have seasons here. It's either summer or spring. Those are our seasons. Summer or spring. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. Good. Well, Justin, we're dying to hear your story of transformation, and it certainly was a very dramatic transformation. So um, jump in and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I always like to create in the beginning, just kind of let people know that I have empathy for them rather than just sympathy. And sympathy is
Yes.
hearing someone's pain, whereas empathy is kind of feeling it with them. And when I was a kid, one of the things that just kind of irked me was I'd be a teenager sitting there in these therapist's office, and I had very like kind of anti-authority kind of teenagers, like, what do you know about pain? Like, what do you know about what I've been through? And they'd have to say, well, I don't know what you've been through. And as one of them really hadn't had a lot of pain in their lives, and so it was really hard for me to connect with someone like that, because you really are looking for empathy. So I like to tell people I've got that. So growing up, I like to say it was an emotional vacuum. It was just me and my mom. I have brothers and sisters, but they're so much older that they were moved out by the time I was born. My father and mother are much older. They met in high school, and they kind of had this little family unit for 19 years, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I come along. So, by the time I came along, the kids, quote, had moved out. They're gone. They were never in the house when I was there. My brother had already left for college when I was born. So it was an empty house. And there was already kind of a crack in the marriage, when I was coming along. And, my early years, that crack just morphed into a canyon. So essentially, my dad, and there's no fault on him, but it was just a toxic, bad marriage that had lasted for far longer than it should have. So he was out. He was on his way out as I was a child, and so it was just me and mom. And mom was going through her own stuff, obviously with the divorce, with her own childhood stuff. With my parents being so much older, I had never met any of my grandparents. And the only grandparent I did meet was my mother's mom. And I don't know Canada if they have Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but that Mac's mom. There's a character in this show that's like, and I have a lot of pop culture because I love to use pop culture as metaphors and stuff. But she's just a very crass older lady, cigarettes, the Jack Daniels in one hand, the uncut, the Marlboro Red in the other, like, hey, how you do? Come give your granny a hug, like, and that was my grandmother. So, so I get it. I get why my mother was the way she was. And somehow she escaped substance abuse. Obviously, my grandmother was a raging alcoholic. She couldn't go a day without it. But um, my mom decided that was not a route she wanted to go, and I'm really respectful towards that. It's just so instead of having this, this alcoholic, rage-filled mother that's always yelling and screaming, and I had an introverted mother who was always
Okay.
sober, but just everything she introverted to herself. She would close the door to her room, and a lot of times I felt like I was just kind of raising myself. We'd do things together, and she loved me in the only way she could, but the truth is she did not know how to love in a healthy manner. She would
Yeah.
buy me things because she couldn't say the word. So I did not grow up around that word, which made a very strange relationship to it my entire life.
Right.
My first girlfriend in high school, I didn't, like, yeah, after a couple months and everything, and she just says, I love you. And I don't
What is
understand.
that? How do you respond
Yeah.
to
What,
that?
yeah. What are you saying? Like, I understand the concept of it. I know I look it up in the dictionary, and I understand the dictionary definition of love, but that's all I understand because I have
Right.
not been shown this thing, like in a healthy manner. Again, my mother, I don't like to talk bad about my mother. She did the best that she could, but hugging, saying the word, being, that kind of, it just wasn't her thing.
Yeah.
So, and for someone sensitive like me, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So, I found these things early on that were like pain duckers is what I call them. And for me, it was comedy and it was food. So,
Okay.
so comedy and video games. So comedy, whatever it was Jim Carrey. This is the '90s, so Jim Carrey was at the height of his powers and all the amazing movies coming out. So I'd watch his movies over and over. It wasn't like today where you have all this content. You have all this choosing you can pick.
Yes.
Back in the '90s, we didn't have that choice. So when we found something we liked, we just watched it over and 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 over, because
Yeah.
there wasn't this streaming thing going on with millions of titles. You had the VHS/DVDs, and you had your cable television that was only recordable with VHS tape, and that was it. So the things that we liked, we became, and anyone in my age group understands this, we became attached to. So like the Simpsons, they were at the height of their Saturday Night Live. So like I just ramble off these characters and I do voices, and so I was obsessed with laughing and making, because that brought me out of my pain. So
Yeah.
making people laugh, laughing myself, that all brought me out of my pain,
You know,
and that helped.
that's very common, isn't it? I think
Mm,
a very large percentage of comedians and, people who aren't even professional comedians, but, the like the life of the party, the funny guy is very often the one that's carrying the most pain and trauma
mhm.
within.
It is very interesting to see that, especially as I get older, someone that I respected so deeply, like a Robin Williams, who was
Yeah.
obviously so badly struggling with all kinds of things, but
Yeah.
was the funniest person on earth, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, it's a great example of what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
that was, and a lot of comedians are like that. And so, yeah, so that worked for a while until I got to high school, and I was first a kind of an introvert early in high school, and a little bit introverted, and then I decided that like I needed friends because things were not going so well at home, and I just really was struggling. And so I used my skills of laughter to get in groups, but now, the next thing is drugs and alcohol. Like that's the next expected step, because that's what everyone's doing, so they're going to expect you to step in and do it too. So of course I did. Um, and
Yeah, because you're a teenager and you do what the crowd is doing, right?
mhm,
That's just
yep.
part of teenage life.
You want to be accepted, you want to be part of it. So I did. And it was fine for a while. I squeaked by. I went to Arizona State University here, and it's known as a big time. It's less so now, but at the time it was really known as a huge party. In the early 2000s, it was like the party school. So to get
Really,
accepted
because
to
I mean,
ASU is not a big
as a
deal.
musician, it's like it's always had the reputation of being a very good music school.
Yes, yeah. So we'll see, and that kind of goes with the kind of creative party vibe. The president who came in when I was there, it has really changed a lot of things and made it, wants to focus on business and innovative and blah blah blah, whatever. But at the time it was a blast. So too much of a blast, and that's when the drug. Somehow I was able to kind of squeak through with the minimal GPA for my given for the communications degree I wanted. Like I think 2.5 was the minimum. I think I graduated 2.6. So it was like, it was a very minimal effort for the most part. And so I graduated with a degree in communications and a nasty drug habit. And so that just continued on. I moved to LA. I wanted to do comedy, see how that worked. Couldn't, to be a stand-up comedian, you have to make it through a set standing up. And given that I was doing so many like drugs, and I was like benzodiazepines and opiates, and like I mean there were times when it was just like I can't even finish this. Like and so it just I was really a wasteoid at the time. And so I saw that this is not doable, that even if I were to like do something in comedy and make it, that I would just destroy it anyways.
Yeah.
So I went to rehab, and the first time in rehab it was like, well, just get my body clean. Like I am struggling so much because I wake up every day with this horrible physical desire for opiates in particular. Opiates at the time, this is the kind of the dope sick, the major time for all these big pharma and things like that, the early 2000s. And so opiates were kind of the big thing, but benzodiazepines, stimulants, they're all wrapped in together. So I just said I wake up feeling like crap, and that's what I use. So after a month in rehab, I felt good. And so at that point, it was like, you can keep your AA, your spirituality, all that garbage. Just like, I'm clean now. I'm good. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And that
You're healed.
lasted for, yeah, I'm healed. Miraculous healing. And I'm surprised it lasted 3 months. It lasted 3 months. So like, so I got out, but that includes the 30 days I was in there. So a grand total of 90 days is what getting my body sober did. It lasted 90 days.
Yeah.
So, and I'm
And
just surprised I'm
Justin,
surprised
that's a
I didn't
really,
relapse immediately.
yeah. Yeah. But that's a really good comment. And the fact that we are body, mind, and spirit, right?
Mhm.
You can't just treat one. And I think that's a fundamental problem with our whole Western paradigm of medicine is they're just treating the body. But if you're not healing the mind and the spirit at the same time, you're just going to get sick again. It almost doesn't matter what the sickness is, right?
Yep, and I preach on that in my book. We can get
Yeah.
all into that in a second here, because that's extremely important. I mean, it
Yeah.
is the mind, body, spirit. It is all three as a trifecta, and the medical community just recently has recognized, okay, there's a mind body connection. Like they've finally. It sounds like it's taken them a while, but it sounds like they're agreeing that there's a connection. But the spirit left out, not going to be included anytime soon.
Yeah.
So cure for conditions that are labeled chronic, the medical community just doesn't understand. And
Right.
so we'll get into that. But so the second time I go back to rehab, I'm like, okay, there is this spiritual element that I agree with you now. Apparently, I don't know everything, I, which is which was quite an ego hit for me coming into the rehab the second time, and being like, I guess I'm not correct. Like, that's a big ego hit, but I took it. And
Yeah.
then I decided, it was like, I'm going to listen to you guys. Like, what do you got? And of course, what they had was AA and Christianity. So that's, that was the rehab center I went to, was kind of a faith-based. They all preach AA regardless of if they're faith-based, and AA is a, foundationally built on Christianity. And so that's fine. It's like, all right, that's what you got. Like, let's do this. And that was, and that worked. That worked for quite a while. And I realize now what was going on in me at that time, and it lasted 6 or 7 years. But what happened was, at that point, after this 6 years of sobriety, of mediocrity, let's be honest, this was, the thing with religion it's good for you and it's bad for you at the same time. It's both. The world is a world of gray, and you have to see the world in a world of gray. There is no, Christianity is great, Christianity sucks. It's neither. It's both. So, for me, it really, it had some amazing things that kept me sober, and it also had some things that held me back from who I am.
Yeah.
Because there's this separation between God and you. There's
Yeah.
God out there, and there's you here, and you're just a human. You don't know shit. You just
Yeah.
shut up and listen to the pastor, and he knows everything. And so that was the life I led for a very, very long time. And it was until that my mom got sick. So my mother was pronounced terminally ill in 2017, and it took about a year for her mind to dwindle away, her body dwindle away. So this whole year is traumatic in itself, right? Like, you're seeing someone you love, and regardless of my mother's parenting skills, she had a kind heart and was a good person, and I love her to death, and I miss her a lot. And to see that was very difficult. But what made things so much worse was this programming that, because she wasn't a Christian, she never went to church, wasn't interested, never was. She's a heathen and she's headed for hell. So this idea screwed me up immensely, immensely. So I would go to pastors with this, and they would tell me, well, they would tell me things like, they would dance around the subject. They would say, well, they wouldn't say she's going to hell, but they wouldn't say she's not going to hell. It's like, maybe you can, like, before she dies, just get her to convert. There's no, we don't know. Like, maybe if she says a Jesus prayer right before she dies, like, who knows? And so it's this, like, insane garbage they're spewing me. And so at that time, so she passed, and I realized that My pastor was full of shit and had no idea what he was talking about. This person who I respected and revered, when it came down to the nitty gritty and game time, he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Like he had not a clue. So I left that and replaced my pastor with a shaman and replaced my prayer with meditation, although prayer and meditation are kind of interchangeable a little bit. But meditation, again, yoga, meditation, these are things in the Christian world that are taboo. You don't talk about them. If you want to conform to the Christian way of life, you don't talk about meditation. You don't talk about yoga. You don't talk about anything that's not in the Bible. So when I was when I was exposed to these things, that's when life really started to change. And that's, I know your thing is about this spiritual experience. That's when the spiritual, paradoxically, what stood in the way of my religious experience was religion. So, yeah, yeah, that's what I figured out. So once I started breaking down the ideals that were created both in me, limiting beliefs as a child and limiting beliefs as an adult, because Christianity was more as an adult, but there's stuff in there that as a child I believed because my mother didn't tell me the things that she should have. So I looked to the world for those beliefs, and the world was going to tell you suck. So I had some stuff in childhood. I had some stuff in adulthood. I had to work through that. I had to meditate. I had to start doing yoga. I started all these amazing things. And one day, my religious experience happened. And it was like I wasn't meditating at the time. So I just worked out. I came back. I was stretching. And all of a sudden, I felt what would be labeled as a panic attack if you replace panic with love. So I had an onslaught of love overcome me, and it was very strange. I still look back, I get goosebumps thinking about it. And there's been several of these. I call them bliss attacks since then. But this one, obviously being the first one, was the most incredible because I was like, "What is going on?" And it's this extreme emotion. So it was like I was emotionally taken to the other side. So right, I call it my near life experience because it wasn't a near death
That's great.
experience. Yeah, it was not. I was not dead. I wasn't even close to dead. Was just stretching. So this is my near life experience. It's like it was. I was like emotionally taken from my bed to the other side. I was not. I did not see things. I did not. I was not out of body. And these things that you hear about that are amazing still haven't happened to me yet. I'm
Yeah,
waiting for my out of body experience. Still hasn't happened. So
yeah,
this was not
me
out
too.
of body. This was, yeah, this was just emotionally I was taking, but at the same time I'm emotionally taking on the other side. I'm getting downloads. I'm getting things like these truths that I know are true because of how I'm feeling in that moment. So I know
Right.
whatever is talking to me is truth because of how I'm feeling, and that's how I know it's truth.
Just a little break from the program to mention a couple of things. Firstly, if you're enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, and leave a short comment. It really helps with the algorithm to find more people who would enjoy these interviews. Also, if you're interested in spiritual growth, you might be interested in my series of spiritual books. As a spiritual author and a former band director, I use my little "the band director" trademark in these books because I use music as a metaphor for life and the journey of becoming a musician as a metaphor for our spiritual journey. There are 3 books in this series. The Band Director's Lessons About Life is a book of modern day parables inspired by events from my teaching career. When you're working with kids, things naturally come up that we sometimes call teachable moments. Little events where you realize there's a bigger lesson happening right now than the alternate F sharp fingering on the clarinet that I was trying to teach. I started writing some of these little stories down and turning them into modern day parables. So, the band director's lessons about life has 50 little parables. It's a bit like a chicken soup for the soul book. Each parable is about 3 pages long. Each begins with a story that happened at school. And then there's a reflection section that draws a spiritual lesson out of the events of the story. That is, it explains what the spiritual metaphor means. The band director's lessons about life is easy to read, makes a great gift, and expresses many universal spiritual principles in an easy to understand way. If you want to go deeper in your spiritual growth, I've also published a study guide to accompany the Book of Parables. It turns the band director's lessons about life into a year-long course in spiritual development. You will spend a week on each of the 50 parables. There is a deeper teaching about the meaning of each parable, reflection and discussion questions, especially helpful if you would like to use the study guide in a group setting, and a different meditation for each lesson. The third book in this series is a little book titled The Band Director's Pocket Guide to Spiritual Growth. This little book explains a simple 3-step process for putting your spiritual growth into high gear. You might also be interested in my 2-book series about the craziness in our world today. The first book, What the Hell is Going On? The Web of Fraud That is Enslaving Everyone and How We Can Escape to Freedom, is still the best big picture expose of what's really going on behind all this craziness. It includes a spiritual perspective of what's happening, which most books leave out. But it also looks at the economics, the philosophy, the psychology, the history, etc., of the many trends that just don't make sense and are, in fact, elaborate frauds. The second book in this series focuses more on solutions to the mess we're in. It's The Way Forward: How to Escape the Totalitarian Control of the New World Order and Heal from its Trauma. This book explains the 3 types of warfare we're being subjected to: spiritual warfare, psychological warfare, and 5th-generation warfare, and how we can sensibly respond on these 3 levels of body, mind, and spirit. You can learn more about all of my books at my website, www.cominghomespirit.com, because after all of us are on a spiritual journey back home to God. So that's cominghomespirit.com. You can also go directly to my Shopify page at cominghomespirit.myshopify.com, where you can purchase my books directly from me in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. I can now ship paperback books to the United States and Canada. If you're enjoying this podcast, I really think you'll enjoy my many books as well. Now, back to the program.
So it's, it just got to me about, like, realities of the universe and illusionary nature of things and where I'm supposed to go with my life and all these incredible things that were told to me. It's 3 hours of this, just
Wow.
to the point where I had to verbally say out loud, like, slow down, because it was too much. It's like trying to drink out of a fire hose.
Yeah, I
And, like,
was thinking, after 3 hours of anything, you're probably sitting there doing your stretches and kind of, I got to go to the bathroom.
oh, I slept for like 13 hours that night. Like, it was like, yeah, it was crazy. But the information, again, it's just too much to fathom. And it's like
Yeah.
drinking out of a fire hose. You can get some stuff, but it's you can kind of, but it hurts a little bit, and like you're getting little bits. And so over time, I've had more of these, and the stuff that it was trying to tell me then is kind of come in now. It just, like, too much at once. You can't. We're human, like, we're in this plane, and in this plane we can only handle so much.
Yeah,
And so,
our conscious mind it
conscious
needs
mind, yeah.
processing time and can
Hmm.
only, yeah, all that kind of stuff. That's the limiting factor in all of this, right? It could, if it could dump directly into our subconscious mind, but then we wouldn't be consciously aware of it. So it's got to go through our conscious mind, but
It
that's
has,
like
yeah.
a that's like a control valve, right? Oh, it can only take so much at a time.
Well, if you think about the Matrix in that movie, which there's a lot of truth, Matrix is, a half truth. We're not being held hostage by AI. We're not. That's not the other side of the simulation. But, if you think about the Matrix, he plugs Neo into the Matrix. He plugs in the back of his brain, and he downloads all, like, how to do martial arts, and he does it, within, like, 30 seconds. So you're skipping the conscious mind at that point. So you know this download goes into in the movie it's obviously but it goes into his but it's obviously being downloaded directly into the subconscious. And 1 minute later, Neo knows is now a martial artist and like is so
Isn't
but for
Hollywood
me,
wonderful?
I didn't have a cord. So it was like I didn't there was no cord. So it was like all this is like so I couldn't get everything. So, we're limited here on this plane. But that's really and I've had a lot of things happen since then and the book has come to me in a bliss attack and all these amazing things, but the book itself is a system of awareness of how other people can have their own bliss attacks. It's like here's what I did, here's what you can do,
Right.
and let's all grow together.
So that experience, it's interesting. I suppose at some point, some researcher is going to do for that kind of experience what Dr. Moody did over half a century ago for what he coined as near-death experiences, and the term has stuck because I think like many more people have had the kind of experience that you just described than have had a near-death experience. And yet I haven't come across anybody that's come up with a term for that sort of thing. And well, the near-death experiences are extremely variable as well. There's no two that are exactly alike. And but I have talked to many people who, like yourself, have had some kind of, like you say, a bliss attack, that somehow something washes over you that's not of this world, and you get these. And downloads is the best description for them, right? Suddenly, um, thoughts and concepts and ideas come into your mind that didn't come from you, but you don't really know where they came from. But you just have this innate sense that, yeah, that's true. I'm not sure if I'm capturing what you've described very well, but it's my attempt at it anyway.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's not something that like I think the important part it wasn't something I was necessarily chasing after or a goal because no one told me this was possible, and I think
Right.
part of this is just relaxing to the possibility. Just
Yeah. Well,
relax
and that,
to the
hey,
possibility.
Justin, that's kind of what meditation is all about too, isn't it?
Yeah,
Relaxing and opening up your mind to a connection with the divine force, whatever you want to call it.
it is. Yeah, and I meditate every day. It is a part of my routine. Yoga, meditation. There's no negotiating my hour-long, half hour. And if something happens, and I have a for people out there. There's a lot of yoga apps and stuff. If you and there's probably a lot of people that already meditate, listen to this, but something happens when you stretch your body, and there's apps out there you can do 10, 20, 30 minutes stretching. I do 30 minutes stretching, 30 minutes meditation. And but something happens when you've stretched your body out and you feel good and you're limber and you drop right into the meditation. And not every time. There's still times when I'm distracted and I can't connect to the field, but like 90, 80% of the time when my body is feeling good and it's stretched, I just lock right in. So for anyone listening, please, I mean, I'm not plugging Apple, but I've Apple Fitness and they offer 10, 20 minute, 30 minute like yoga sessions where you can just get in and just like plug in and go. And
And
meditation
so is it
is
music?
huge.
Is it just kind of relaxing music playing, Justin, or what do you hear?
Okay, so well, the yoga is like what it is itself, but when I'm meditating, I usually do guided, which is anyone who's not familiar with or hasn't meditated, guided is the way to go. Because when I first started meditating, if you consider it like your body and getting in shape, my mind when I first started meditating, it was very out of shape. It was like my web browser. There was 19 tabs open, three were frozen, and I didn't know where that music was coming from. Like that's my mind. That was my mind when I first started meditating. Was just like this, like I couldn't control it. But just like the body, when you start going to the gym, repeated visits, first of all, they start getting more enjoyable. You start seeing results and then you start feeling the long lasting results, and
Yeah.
that's where meditation comes in. It's just like your body. There's no good or bad at meditation. That's crap. There's only practice and unpracticed. That's it.
Yeah.
So if you want to be quote good, and there's still times when I just a couple days ago, I was too distracted. I did my yoga, I hopped into my meditation, and I just couldn't get to that kind of that amazing state. Yeah, that
Yeah. Mine's
blissful
all
kind of
over.
state. Yeah, it just and that's fine. Just let it. It's like, all right, you're distracted today. Move on. What am I gonna like not meditate tomorrow because I was distracted today? Come on, like you keep with it.
Yeah.
That is definitely what I would tell you. Keep with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep practicing. I mean, I've been a band director and a musician and a music teacher, and you got to keep practicing. So I
Mhm.
tell my students, and that's in fact I have a little book. Where is it here? It's for you to plug your thing, but my little book, The Band Director's Pocket Guide to Spiritual Growth, and that the whole thing is it's an analogy with music and the three simple steps. The third step is practice. Practice, practice, practice. It's like the story of the guy, walking down the street in New York, and he ran into, I don't know, like Horowitz or some of these great pianists, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, do you know how to get to Carnegie Hall?" And Horowitz said, "Yes. Practice, practice, practice."
Yes,
It's
I know that. Yeah, I've heard that before. Yep, I've heard that. Yeah, how do you get to Carney call
it's an old one.
practice like so?
It's an
Yeah, you're
old one.
talking about like streets and stuff, but what really is like, yeah, yeah. No, it's I like that one, but and it's important to understand why. Like, why do you? Well, because first of all, it's much like taking a shower. I don't, especially someone as active as me, and I completely believe in believe it's a scientific fact. You lift weights and your movement and you move. It's healthy for you and it's very good. This is not it's not speculation. That's just science fact. So for someone like me, I move a lot. I work out a lot, so I stink a lot. So I take a shower every night. At least sometimes it's twice a day when I got stuff to do, but every night before I go to bed, I can't go to bed unclean. It's the
Yeah,
same for meditation. You are showering your mind.
yeah,
And it is your mind. So the brain is just an organ. The mind is the brain in action. So
yeah,
you're showering your mind with meditation. And so and what you're doing is also opening yourself up to the universe. So like the entire force that created everything that we are wants to talk to you every day. But if you're constantly telling it it's busy, it will respect your decision and not talk to you. So we're the convergent focus, divergent focus. We're in a convergent focus right now. We're on the computer. We're on the phones. We're with our kids. We're cooking dinner. We're at work. So if that's your day and you're constantly in a convergent focus, you are telling the creator of everything that you're busy. And many times we are busy, and that's fine. It's fine to be busy. But if you're always busy, then it can never talk to you.
yeah,
So meditation, it's like taking and you're like I like to compare it to being on a brick wall. So if you're stood up to a brick wall and you're right like nose against the brick wall, like so all you're gonna see is a blurry shade of red. That's it. That's your reality. And that is convergent focus. So you take a step back. Well, now you see that red is a shape. Okay, it's a brick. Take another step back. You're like, okay, there's multiple bricks. They're stacked on top of each other. Okay, that's new. You take another step back. You realize, okay, this is a wall that was just originally. So there's a wall here. So what's about? You take another step back. And you realize that what was just a blurry shade of red is actually you know the outside of a magnificent castle. And now you've achieved the divergent focus because you've taken steps back. It's like in the universe, we in 1920, not that long ago, under 100 years, there was one galaxy, ours. That's it. In 1920, and not think about that. 100 years
yeah.
ago, there was one galaxy,
That we
and now
knew
there's
of.
2 trillion because we've taken steps back. 2
Yeah,
trillion, 1 to 2 trillion, all because we've taken step back.
yeah. And if you go back a century before that, most people believed that the Earth as a planet was created in 6 days, and that the whole place was only 5,000 years old or whatever, 3,000.
No one
So
questioned
yeah,
anything.
we've come a
Yeah.
long way in our understanding, and that should actually not be a point of pride for us, but a point of humility to think that, okay, I mean, if you want to imagine that 200 years ago we were in grade one, 100 years ago we were in grade two, today we're in grade three. We got a long ways to go on this
Yeah.
journey of learning.
A long ways to go. And but some of us, like you and I and your listeners, are advanced students. So I mean, like we're waiting for
Oh,
society to catch
thank
up
you.
with us.
Pat myself on the
Yeah.
back.
We see everything, and there's it's a very small number. Unfortunately, but it's growing. And so
Yes.
anyone listening to this, you, me, like we are the gifted. We're we're the special
Well,
students that that
we're the
that, that are
vanguard.
that are not in third grade, but
Yeah.
maybe look like we're in third grade, but are actually, with the high school students and trying to get into college. But yes, society is going to take a long time to catch up with us. I can definitely see that.
Well, it's hard to say. I think that the change. I mean, look, since we're looking at the last 200 years, changes right in human knowledge and human technology and all kind of this stuff. This growth trajectory has not been a straight line, and it's an exponential curve, and it's going up faster and faster and faster. Now, it may well be that our spiritual unfoldment is also happening at an exponential rate. But what we've been seeing in the past is I mean, every exponential function starts out very slowly and then, gradually gets faster. And then towards the end, it appears to go straight up. Just think of, if you take two and then square, right? Two squared is four. Four squared is 16, and then 60. So like you got to take a lot of steps, and it doesn't seem to think if you thought of that as pennies, right? The old story about if you get if you convince somebody to pay you a penny on the first day of the month, two pennies on the second day of the month, and then continue to double that every day of the month. If you can commit, you'll be a millionaire by the end of the month. But you'll get to the 20th and you still only have a couple bucks. Right. So the real power of that exponential growth is towards the end. So, it may not be reasonable to assume that the rate of growth of spiritual growth in the collective consciousness, you might say, the rate of spiritual growth in the collective consciousness that we've seen in the past is going to be the same in the future. It may well be an exponential growth pattern, and we're just in that bottom part of it, and it has yet to take off. I fully think that, and I'm already not a young person anymore. I'm 68 years old, but I'm convinced that before I die in the physical sense of this body, this is going to be a very different world, and we're going to be in a completely different level of consciousness. It's almost unbelievable for anyone to conceive of right now. That's what I think, but of course it's the future. Nobody knows.
Nobody does, and I completely agree. And I love your analogy, except for the part that here in the States we've decided pennies are useless. So that wouldn't work here. We don't have pennies anymore here in the
Well,
States.
you still under
Uh,
they exist in the digital world. Yeah, I
the
sorry.
pennies.
I keep distracting you and jumping in. So
Oh
we
yeah,
were
yeah,
hearing your
no, me
story.
too.
So this kind of you call this the Bliss attack. I think that's a nice name for it. So the Bliss attack was a transformational experience for you, right? So you pick up your story there.
Yeah, so that Bliss attack, it was like something happened in that moment where it was like a movie moment. If you like, there's so much pop culture in my book because I grew up obsessed with pop culture. And here's the thing is the consciousness that I'm talking about. So my book is called Sorcery 101, but I use a U. So source as in source energy. It is the energy where we all came from and we're all going back to. It surrounds us at all times. It's everything. It's you, it's me, it's this computer, it's everything. Everything is made up of source energy, right? At the very bottom of everything, you break everything down, it's all atoms. Right? Well, what constitutes the fact that the atoms of this computer here know it's a computer? Because they're all atoms. So how do the atoms of this computer know it's a computer? How do the atoms of Justin know it's Justin? And why can't the atoms of Justin interact with the computer? Well, science can't explain that. They have no idea. They have no idea. That is a completely stumped question. Well, the answer for me is belief. I believe this computer is here. I believe I am here. I believe this table is here. I believe this wall is here. So the fact that I believe that the wall is here makes it much harder for me to put my hand through it, although I don't think it's impossible. So things like that
Hey,
are,
I've known people who put their hands through a wall, right?
well, that's a different kind of. I've
I
done
know.
that too.
I know.
I've been very upset, and it has gone through the. But you're breaking the wall to do
Yeah.
that, as
Yeah.
opposed to separating
I
the
get it.
atoms
I
and your
know.
hand go through the wall. Yeah, it's
Yes.
so yeah, so it's
And really,
these.
it's not atoms at all, is it? I mean, I've often thought about this. When we look at any apparently solid material object, well, we know very well that it's made up of atoms, and the atoms have come together in molecules. But nonetheless, there's the nucleus of every atom or molecule is very small, and the electrons are orders of magnitude smaller than that. And the distance between the nucleus and the electrons is is comparatively similar to the distance between the sun and the planets in our solar system. Like the vast amount of the actual space taken up by any physical object is literally empty space. And so, yeah,
99.99999 whatever. Yeah. Uh-huh.
so we should be able, it's not the matter itself that does not allow us to kind of one hand to pass through the other hand. It's actually the energy.
Mhm.
We're bumping in to an energy force field, really.
It is. Yeah. No, and those are the things that kind of came to me during this, and like, you know, one of the things, like, if you get quiet, and so I've had several bliss attacks, and the story pretty much comes to an end. There's some stuff happened, and like I could go into it deeper, but we don't have a lot of time. So it's that I've had several of these bliss attacks, and they've given me direction and focus and everything. And one of the times I was having one of these bliss attacks, it wasn't necessarily feeding me a lot of, the book came in a direct bliss attack that was like, here's how you're gonna do it, here's how you set it up, this is what you're gonna do, this is, but like, I like all this like blueprint came to me. Other bliss attacks I've had where I just feel good. There's no real downloads happening. It's just I feel really in touch with the field that surrounds us, source energy. So explaining source energy to someone is like explaining water to a fish. Like it's fairly difficult to describe water to a fish, and the fish is not going to have any concept of water.
And
Like, and
especially those species of fish that don't speak English.
yeah, 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 exactly. Well, and and so explaining water to a fish is like, it's very difficult to do, and that's where I've been placed, is like, but once you're the fish that sees the water, well, now you want to tell all the other fish about the water and what's going on here, and and that the ocean isn't everything. There is stuff outside the ocean. There's a whole nother world. It's like being caught by an angler. Like, so all of a sudden you're living and it's in a pond. Forget the ocean. Let's say you're a fish in a pond. You're just living your life in this pond, and you have your limitations, and you go around and you just do circles, and that's your life in the pond. And all of a sudden a fisherman catches you and pulls you out. It can be kind of as a traumatic experience, but at the same time, what does that fish tell the other fish? Like, I was pulled out of my reality. I saw this whole other world where there were people and other ponds and oceans and trees, and there was a whole other world, and then you get thrown back into your pond.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah. And
That's what happened to me.
they'd say, there's demons out there. They're trying to kill us.
It could be a perspective, and that's a perspective, right? And you hear a lot of people that have these near-death experiences that have a lot going on in their subconscious, that have horrible experiences. They're just like, oh my God, it's hell, it's real. I had a horrible experience, and so, but then you hear about people that have this amazing experience, have a completely different perspective on things. And that's where I kind of come in and have and trying to tell people to have this bliss attack and to exit the simulation for a second. There's a lot of kind of negative connotativity that's come to the matrix of the red pill, blue pill thing, but it's it's
Right.
exiting your reality and knowing that there is more to the story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Because
that is that is that is my message. And that is the blueprint I created, that Source helped me create, was like, here's how you get people to unlock themselves. It's like airplane mode. So if your phone in airplane mode isn't very useful. It's useful a little bit. You can still use it. It's still good. You can listen to your music, you can have your tunes, whatever, but you can't connect to the outside world. You're not going to get calls, you're not going to get texts, you're not going to get emails. You have no connection to the outside world because you've shut off. And so here for sure in America, I don't know, but across the world, I'm sure it's the same, is they raise their kids who are off airplane mode. Every child is off airplane mode. Listen to your kid. Ask them questions. They're off airplane mode. It's wonderful. But something happens where you get conditioned into airplane mode. And by the time you reach middle school, you've been conditioned and your airplane mode is shut off, is now turned on. And now you listen to society, you listen to things, you listen to what can't, and you start believing those things. And
yeah.
and now your airplane mode is. So in that moment of this Blizz attack, I realized that airplane mode had been turned off. And once it's turned off, the great news is once you experience something like this, it doesn't come back on. You can put it back on. You can do it. Like for me, it would be something like getting lost in drugs and alcohol again. I can
Right.
absolutely turn on my airplane mode and get, if I get lost in drugs and alcohol again, my airplane mode is turned on. Everything I've learned is disabled. Now it's there, which is the wonderful part, because you've created, your divine self and the shadow self, which are very
Right.
different. We don't have time to get into it too deeply, but there are two portions of us: the trauma and limiting beliefs that make up the shadow, and the divinity of the sorcerer. So I like to say, I always tell people I'm a little bit Deepak and I'm a little bit Tupac. And that's the sides, that's the two sides of me. That's the divinity and the shadow, the
Yeah.
reactor and the responder.
Yeah. In
So,
everyone.
if you get to that responder point, you can change everything in your life.
Yes. And that's in many ways, that's exactly what the spiritual journey and raising our consciousness, as we call it, is about taking back the control. Right? At that, if you think about the map of consciousness that David Hawkins came up with, the lower levels, lower states of consciousness, you're completely controlled by things outside you. You're responding instinctively. If you run into somebody who treats you with anger, then you respond with anger and you become angry. Well,
Mm.
you think he made me so angry. But then as you get higher in your
Did he?
levels of consciousness, you realize, why would you ever let someone have that power over you? You you get, this is your God-given right, or your source-given right. You get to decide your state of consciousness. You don't have to be angry just because he's angry. Right?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
decide to be happy. And so then you become uncontrollable. You're controlled from within, not from without.
Yeah. And what I've figured out in these older times is that, these times you've touched a wound. So, yeah, and this is the problem with the best way to describe this in terms of especially Western medicine and the approach to it. There's an amazing place for doctors. I mean, let's give doctors all the respect they're due, right? Like if you have an acute injury, go see a doctor. There's nothing I can do for you if your foot is facing the wrong way. Like there's nothing I personally can do for you. Like it's like if you were to climb a ladder and you fell off 2 stories, and now you're alive, but you have a bone sticking through your elbow, and so this is not a good time for meditation. Like I'm not gonna,
It's not going to
I'm
heal
not
you.
gonna. Yeah, yeah. Acupuncture is not the best move at this point. You have a bone sticking out of your body. Go to the hospital. But here's the deal. Once once the doctor sets the bone in place, puts the cast on, does the whole thing, well, it's the body that heals it. What made the body heals the body. The doctor's
Yeah.
part is done. They've
Yeah.
done a great job, but they are not there healing you. So
Yes.
what
Yes.
the medical community does not understand is how to, when it comes to chronic conditions, all chronic conditions, all of them, I don't care if it's a physical, mental, emotional, whatever it is, anything labeled chronic is a problem with spiritual bankruptcy. That is the core of the issue, whether it's autoimmune disorders, addiction, anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADD, autism, I don't care. At the core of that, you can go back and there is an issue with spiritual bankruptcy. And so to go back and to understand that the medical community is great at managing the symptoms of these things, but there will never be a cure because, as we said in the beginning, mind, body, spirit,
Yeah.
all three must be present. So for me, because I've been in and out of the medical system here in America for 20 years, and it's had its good points, it's had its low points, but overall I'm much better off now, away from things like SSRIs, and I won't even get into some of the more controlled substances that really
Yeah.
take control of your life. But even the SSRIs that I've been on, and I speak this from personal experience, it's a double-edged sword. It's that world of gray. If they work for you,
Yeah.
great. I would never tell
Yeah.
anyone to get off of it ever. But for me, the side effects became much worse than the condition they were treating. And
Yeah.
so I stepped forward and said, there's got to be another way. There's got to be some other way around it. And so the whole thing I've created is like, it's helping to set the emotional slash spiritual bone and
Yeah.
allowing the body to heal itself.
Yeah.
So that's what shamanism is. We are, and I'm not a trained shaman. I like to say I'm a Shaw man because my last name is Shaw. Because so I say I'm
That's cute.
Shaw man.
You're a
But yeah,
definite
I'm a
comedian.
Shaw man. I'm Shaw man. Yeah, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm not necessarily a trained shaman, but shaman understand how to set the emotional slash acupuncture, psychedelics, like I'm not a big fan of constant psychedelics, but like maybe revisiting once in a while. But a lot of people experience amazing healing in just one or two tries. And so this is what big pharma is scared of, is actual acupuncture. Again, they give you 3 to 5 times, and I've experienced massive healing in my anxiety from acupuncture, full body, not just the ear one, full body acupuncture. And so these are things that insurance isn't going to pay for. Guess what? Insurance didn't pay for my acupuncture, not a dime, because that is healing. And what they would prefer is symptom management.
Yeah.
So that's the most critical part into healing trauma, is understanding the shaman route, which is 1 foot in the physical world, 1 foot outside of it. You can't have both feet inside, you can't have both feet outside. In order, real healing happens when you've straddled the two worlds. And so that's the main thing I try to get out to people, is like, there are other options that can be used in conjunction with Western society. I'm not saying choose this or choose that. I would never say that.
Right.
Um, but there are other options that I've discovered because I was not happy with just the Western approach.
Yes. Absolutely. There's an old when you were talking about what doctors are good at and what they're not good at. If you have a broken arm, go see a doctor. There's a quote that I don't remember which famous doctor said it, and comes from about 200 years ago. But the quote is, "The surgeon dresses the wound, God heals it."
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's precisely it. Because there's just, the body has this amazing capability to, and it's in that area of subconscious. I don't tell my body to heal itself. I don't say I need healing, although if you focus on the healing, you will heal faster. But
Yeah.
you don't have to do that for your body to heal. That's the most amazing part, is you don't have to sit there and meditate and place energy on your wound or whatever's happening. I guarantee that it will go much better and much faster if you do that. But you don't have to do that. The body's like, no, it's cool. We got it. Like, and so these are things like I don't tell my body to do that. So what is doing that?
Yeah. You've said a little bit about your book. I don't know if you've summarized it adequately. Would you like to just tell us the gist of what your book is about? Do you think
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
said
No,
enough?
it's I really haven't gone too deeply into it at all.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
yeah, like I said,
Because it
the
sounds
the whole
fascinating.
thing, yeah, the whole thing, yeah, it came to me kind of very interesting, and it was in a Sedona hike, and like this whole amazing thing happened to where it was like it gave me, this guidance as to, what to call it, something a little different, maybe a society full of sorcerers with a U in it, like that might catch
SOURCE.
people.
Yeah.
Yep, SOUs. Yeah, so it's not, you can keep your Harry Potter robes and in the closet for now. I'm not going to be able to teach you how to turn your roommate into a frog. You're going to have to figure that out from someone else. I can't do that. It's not that kind of sorcery, right? So, but yeah, it's Sorcery 101, and it's called 13 Rungs to a Higher Elevation of Consciousness. Because when I was in AA and I was doing that whole thing, they have, AA and the 12 steps. So of course that's what my subconscious used to me as like an example, right? So steps, that it's nothing, there's nothing similar to it other than I needed a way to organize everything. So, and
Right.
moving forward is good. Sure, great. Yeah, moving forward is good, but moving up is better because a
Yeah.
bird has a better perspective on things than a worm. So instead of steps, they're rungs. You go up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I created it's a different direction. And they're completely different in every way it's set up. And there's 13 of them. There's 13 for a very specific reason, because immediately I want people to start thinking about, well, 13, that's unlucky, isn't it? Why would you have 13? Well, no, it's not. That's one of the lies we've been told. It's a very divine number. In tarot, it represents death, rebirth, and transformation. So not death, physical death, death to the old self, the creation, that program that society gave to, death to that, rebirth, and now transformation. So tarot, 13 is critical. So I want people to immediately start thinking about it. Here in America, we don't have 13 floors on. We don't have a 13th floor in hotels because it's so unlucky. But there is. They just call it the 14th floor, which is ridiculous. And so it's thinking about it's starting to get people to think about that. And so that's why I chose that number. And it all kind of makes sense when you read it. But if you like funny, which I use a lot of humor in it. There's a very humorous story in the beginning, and when I talk about kind of my background and everything, and I could talk about it in a very sad, kind of like fearful way, but instead I make it hilarious, and you laugh at my past the whole way through. And then you kind of get into the whole system, because you gotta create some rapport, gotta let you know who I am, and then you get into the system. So the book is there. It is on Amazon and Audible. I read it, which is fun. I recorded it in my closet in the summer in Arizona. So it was like I'd record for an hour, come back like sweating profusely, and then have to go back in my closet and do it again. So it was a fun experience, but it is on Audible. So if you don't like to read, it's on Audible, and then it's on the website too. The website is www.awakenthesorcerer.com, again with a U. My Instagram, which I've never been a big fan of social media until I got back on it recently. And something I just want to say real quickly is the algorithm my Instagram now feeds me is incredible. And the algorithm my Instagram used to feed me was destructive. Instagram, social media are not bad. It is how we use them. So I've come into this new Instagram and it feeds me like cute dog pictures, funny SNL impressions, bloopers from shows like The Office and Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and some really deep stuff from teachers that I like. And that's what my algorithm shows me. And I'll just take a half an hour and just go through these short clips of all this wonderful stuff. I'm tearing up, I'm laughing, like the whole experience is completely different than when I originally had Instagram, and it was like full of fearful conspiracy theories, pretty girls, and material world. And that's what my algorithm was feeding me. Well, our algorithm in our minds is the same way. If you we have an algorithm, and it shows us what we are wanting it to show, either subconsciously or consciously. So it's something fascinating I just picked up the other day. And if you can't afford the book, I will gladly send you one for free. It's just a PDF. You can email me at sorcerer13@gmail.com. I love hearing people that connect with it. So those are the ways.
Good. And I'll be sure to put those links in the show notes as well, so people can connect with you in all the different ways that they would like to connect with you. Justin, it's been a joy and an honor to have you on the show and to hear your story and your transformation and the Bliss attacks. I'm gonna have to be more serious about my I'm a bad boy when it comes to meditation, It just anyway. I fall off the meditation wagon regularly and get back on. And I have, like you suggested, I have found that guided meditations are a very good way to get you back in. And so
completely. So and there's 3 really good apps for people out there. There's Headspace, there's Calm, and there's Insight Timer. All of those are free. They're paid versions too, but all of them are free. You can get short versions, but start with guided.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been great.
Okay. God bless you in your work, and all the best to you in your future endeavors.
Thank you. You too. Absolutely.